In my practice as a spiritual counselor and a priestess, I often have people ask what I believe. And I have realized how hard it is to speak it in a nutshell. So I wanted to at least start with a series of videos that explains my beliefs and then how I got to them. So I was raised Southern Baptist Christian in West Texas. I became a Christian when I was 8 years old. I was raised with the love of God and the love of Jesus, and I saw that actual relationship that my parents had with the love of God and the love of Jesus as it played out in their lives. And what that meant was, it wasn't just when things were good, it was watching them navigate loss and struggle and fear and all the things that we are plagued with as adults, and seeing how their faith always pulled them through. And it was just such a perfect model for me as I grew into an adult and a parent, and learned to apply the way that they lived their lives, the way they lived their faith in my own life. However, my beliefs differ greatly from what is in the Bible and from what I was taught from the pulpit, not from my parents, not from my Mima, not from my Uncle Ray, who is a Southern Baptist minister, but what preachers and what the Bible said, right? Like, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You're condemned to the fiery pits of hell for this, that, and the other. The way that verses have been weaponized and applied to modern people in modern times that were only supposed to apply to, let's say, the Levites or the Corinthians, or, right? These were specific letters written to those people to address their behavior and to provide their teachings, and then now they're somehow used as justification to hate gay people and to condemn gay people to death. And so, what I believe that the energy that is the creator is not singular, and I do not believe it has human attributes. I believe that man applied human attributes to their God so that they could have a relationship with their God. But that is inherently flawed, because that is coming from humans and not from the source itself. For me, the energy that creates worlds, the energy that tells the sun to rise and to set, that tells my heart to beat and my lungs to take in oxygen, the energy that tells the seed when it's time to burst forth, that energy is the great mystery, the great spirit, the goddess herself. And even ascribing the feminine to that energy is me trying to make sense of it and make sense of that power and how it might apply to my life. But if I had not discovered the divine feminine, if I had not discovered the goddess when I was 23, then I would not have come all the way through to this very whole, centered, anchored belief system that I now carry. So, just a closer walk with thee. So, taking what I knew of God and what I knew of Jesus and wrestling with what I was hearing from the pulpit and the way that people would, again, misuse things in the Bible, I left the church probably when I was about 16. We went to church every time the doors were open, and I was able to no longer, I just wasn't forced to do that anymore. And I tried being an atheist for about 2 seconds. It didn't work because I have too much belief. And so then I tried, really exploring ways that other cultures around the world identify their spirituality. And I found Taoism, which is a Chinese philosophy based on the flow and the Wu Wei, as they call it. And I love that philosophy. And I did a deep dive in college around all of that. And then I found Native American spirituality through books, through the Carlos Castaneda series of Don Juan, through Lynn Anderson's book about Jaguar Woman, Spirit Woman, But I thought that was fiction. And I was still hungry and still seeking and still longing for that connection. And I found a lot of that connection through psychedelic journeys, starting from the time I was 17 until I was 23, which is interesting. I didn't realize that when those journeys stopped, it was not long after that I discovered the goddess. So that's kind of fascinating. So when I found out that for over 200,000 years, God was a woman, the people knew that divine energy as female, as a goddess, I felt like I had been robbed. I felt like I knew something had been missing all that time, but I couldn't find it anywhere. And then next thing you know, I'm hearing about Sumeria and Babylonian scripture and Syria and their mythology, and I'm learning about the stories that were anchored centuries before the Bible was ever written, being exact duplicates of what we find in the Bible. And it was just like, they totally plagiarized it. So I became a full-blown theologian. And then along with that, I apprenticed as an herbalist, and my teacher was very aligned with the lunar cycles and Mother Nature and Gaia herself as her feminine power and her spirituality. And then I was called to Awakening the Millennium Priestess process, which was a 9-month initiation journey into feminine power and into awakening the priestess archetype within ourselves. And that actually gave me the spiritual authority that I had been lacking, because I had been told that everything that I thought was wrong. I had been told not to ask the questions I started asking at the age of 6 of Sunday school teachers and church leaders. Arguments I would get into with people and debates I would get into around, if God is a loving God the Father, then why would he condemn his children to burn forever? Because as a mother, I couldn't fathom ever making that decision. So if I, as a human woman, would never enact that type of damnation to my children, and yet I'm supposed to follow the Most High and follow God's example, absolutely not. And at a certain point, I remember rereading Genesis and searching really for the faith I was raised in to be, it was almost like I needed to go to the scripture and find what I was looking for. And actually what I found there was it supported the divine feminine. It supported what I was discovering as a newfound idea or path when I read the scripture through the lens of, okay, this is what I was taught and this is what I believe. Where do they cross over? I found it.